All right, this is part 1 for lesson 7. So you're going to need a paper that looks like this from the supply shelf for this lesson. You will also need near the end of the video, you will need a blue and a red writing utensil. I would suggest colored pencils. If you want to use markers, you can. Just make sure that they do not bleed through too much on the paper since it's a double-sided piece of paper. Okay, so let's see. On this paper, there are numbers. There's verses to a rap, and no, I'm not going to rap for you. But you can imagine the rap as you read it. But we're going to use some of this information to help us fill out the blanks, okay? Said, the first part is, yo, 6th grade. It's time to rhyme it. These are the factors that affect the climate. Look it up on a map and don't give me attitude. Degrees to the north and south are called latitude. In the middle, the sun really beats down. That's why it stays warm all year round. As you move away, higher latitudes are colder, tropical, temperate, and polar. So you know that the equator's hot. Just ask the penguins. The poles are not. Equator's hot, but the poles are not. So the equator's hot, but the poles are not. So using this information up here, latitude. Latitude measures, might need a new pen. It measures the distance north and south. Measures the distance north and south of the equator. If you can't fit it in, that's okay. The equator. So the latitude measures the distance north and south of the equator. There are these latitude lines, these dotted lines are latitude lines. So they measure the distance from the equator north and south. So this middle line right here is called the equator, but we already knew that. The line just north is called the Tropic of Cancer. The line just south is called the Tropic of Capricorn. And then the line north of the Tropic of Cancer is called the Arctic Circle. And then the line south of the Tropic of Capricorn is called the Antarctic Circle. Okay. So there's that. Okay. Remember from the song, it says, the blank is hot, but the blank are not. Remember, the equator is hot, but the poles are not. All right. We are going to read the next section of our rap, which is down near the bottom of the paper. It has a number 2 right here. Elevation also affects the climate, which you'll notice if you go to a mountain and climb it. Sea level 0, and as it gets greater, it means you're going up like an elevator. Another word for elevation's altitude, like a guy named Al, who's a really cool dude. And by cool, I mean cold, because the higher you go, the more the temperature drops, so you're going to get snow. The higher you go, more cold, more snow. So the higher you go, more cold, more snow. So we go back to where it says elevation. Elevation measures the distance from sea level. It measures the distance from sea level. So like how high up you are in the mountains, for example. Now the weather in higher altitudes is snowy and cold. Higher elevations, it's snowy and cold. And the air pressure is low. It's low. Low pressure. Not a lot of stuff in the air to push down on you. And low altitude, low elevation or low altitudes, the weather is more sunny and warm. And the air pressure is high. So we're looking at the air pressure. Air pressure is how much stuff is pressing down against each other, which means that a high pressure, high density, all that stuff is packed in. Low pressure is like low density. There's not a lot of stuff that's really close together. So if we draw those like particles, we're gonna have really compact particles down here at a low elevation. And then as you get higher, those particles are farther and farther apart from each other, okay? So low pressure, high pressure, a lot of stuff close to each other. And then if we turn this sideways, the blank you go, blank snow, blank cold. Well, remember in the rap, it said, the higher you go, more cold, more snow. So the higher you go, more snow and more cold. Okay. Now the part, in order to fill this part out, we need the wrap from the opposite side of the page, the other side of the page. So I pull this in here, right here. Number 3, it's the top of the back side of the paper, but I just read it here. It says, oceans are moving. We can trace the currents as they cool things down or bring heat like a furnace. Canada is cold, but across the sea, it's balmy. Thanks to the Gulf Stream, Ireland has palm trees. The water's warm, so it warms up the air above it. Warm air holds more moisture, so the plants are gonna love it. This ocean current, it makes Europe kind of a paradise. I'm not saying it is tropical, but the climate you'll find there is nice. Warm Gulf Stream makes Europe a dream. Warm Gulf Stream makes Europe a dream. All right. So if we use these words to help us answer this, it says, so warm blank blank makes Europe a blank. So what did we just read? Warm Gulf Stream makes Europe a dream. Now, temperature differences in the ocean cause movement known as convection cycles. Convection cycles. Now, this area below here looks super familiar, right? This looks really familiar because remember we did this last week. I want you to, okay? You are going to color the arrows that are going to the equator. Are going to be blue. Going toward the equator, blue. And you're going to color the arrows that are going toward the poles, red, because the water that's going towards the poles is warm, and the water that's going towards the equator is cold. Now I'm going to color just 2 for you right now. Remember, if it's going towards the poles, it's red. So right in this area, this arrow, because it's going towards the poles, away from the equator, we're going to color this one red. And then, do you see how this arrow kind of feeds into that one right there? So we're also going to color this one red because it's going towards the poles. Now remember, in the wrap, it said, warm Gulf Stream makes Europe a dream. So this is actually the Gulf Stream right here. So label this Gulf Stream. This goes up from this is the Gulf of Mexico. Warm water flows up this way. This is the East Coast, like New York City, Florida, all that. Goes up here and it keeps traveling up. This is Europe right here. This is England and Ireland and Scotland right here. And all this warm water comes up here. And so it's actually warm in Europe in this area because of this water coming from there. So go ahead and finish coloring your arrows and then go to part 2 to fill out the back side of this paper.